everybody heard that, right? Imagine that being right next to your house. Imagine that being right next to your house, right? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about data centers. All right, in data centers in Colorado, they have almost, I think they just passed a law to where they're actually putting a data center in Colorado, and it's really alarming because if you look at it, we have no water right now. It's hot. It's over 100 degrees, right? We're having these heat flashes out here, man. So in Colorado, it's about to get sticky, and I have a bad feeling that it's going to be like that in a lot of other cities. So on the Wealthy and Healthy podcast today, we are going to talk about something different. We haven't dropped a Wealth Wednesday episode in 2 weeks, so what we're going to talk about today is data centers. And if you guys just seen that video, that was right next to a neighborhood, right? So the big thing that's alarming is they're putting these in these restricted water, in these water restricted areas, right? So meaning there's not a lot of water, right? In Florida and in Colorado, we're being advised to use less water and less electricity, so we can't even use our stuff flexibly, so that these data centers can use up to what they're saying a regular sized data center is going to use up to 30 million gallons of water every single day. Crazy, right? So when we dive into this, we as entrepreneurs and I think as business owners, we got to start chiming in on this stuff because we're the ones who use AI a lot, right? These big data centers, their goal is to replace a workforce, right? Their goal is to make more money, sell these to more businesses, and take out the middleman, right? So when we look at this, we haven't had a lot of voice when it comes to these data centers, right? So we got to start looking at this and saying, man, what's going on? Something is happening, and we're going to be on the wrong side of it if we don't, take a stand right now. So as entrepreneurs, as business owners, I want to use AI. As an entrepreneur and a business owner, I want to use AI. I like AI. I use AI on a daily basis, and I think that there's, different ways that we can utilize AI versus, looking at these data centers. The big thing is with these data centers is the concern is, number one, obviously, what mental health issues could come with hearing that noise 24/7. Number two is the physical health. When you look at these data centers, they're releasing these chemicals into the water, and then they're releasing that contaminated water into the water supply because there's no rules and regulations on how these data centers are supposed to work. So I think that that's the big thing that we're going to talk about today. How can we create a system to where if we do have data centers, where are we going to put them, right? Are there going to be a lot of data centers, right? I'm about to show you guys a map here in a minute where, you look at how many data centers are reported, how many are in the works, and how many are already in the US, right? And if you look at other countries like China, they are using data centers and they're not using up as much water. So like I said, they're being put in these water restricted areas. So now we as communities, we are being advised to use less water so that these data centers can run and use up to 30 million gallons of water a day. And that's just low end, right? On average, data centers can be up to 20 super Walmarts, not the little neighborhood Walmarts we'd be going to, the huge super Walmarts that got Subways and McDonald's and eyeglasses and arcade games in those Walmarts, those big super Walmarts. About 20 of those is going to be the average size of these data centers, right? So if you look at the size of that and you're like, ooh, that's crazy. So if we're going to have these big buildings, why are we putting them across the street from neighborhoods? Why are we putting them in water restricted areas, right? Why is there so many of them, right? If you look at the size of those, you think why aren't they out in the country, like you would do a prison, like you would do a plant, right? So if you see these big institutions or these big, these companies that use all these chemicals and they're releasing them out into the air or into the water supply, why are they right next to a school or why are they right next to a community, right? So that's the big thing that's been alarming for a lot of people. Another thing is, if you look at these farmers or people that live out in the country, their wells are running dry. They have to dig deeper to get more water because these data centers are using so much water, and because there's been cases where these data centers are literally pushing people out, farmers out off of their land so that they can create these big, huge data centers, which also has a question of where's the wildlife going to go? Where are these farmers going to go, right? Some of these farms have been in families for Black generations, right? And we've been seeing a big surge of that in Black farmers, which we're going to talk about on the Community Blueprint podcast. And we're going to dive deeper into that, right? So I would love for y'all to come kick it with me on that one. But when it comes to these data centers, we are looking at things as like, what's going on? Why are we as the communities not getting any say? Why are they just being thrown into our communities, right? I'm going to show you guys one more video of what this is really doing to the water supply.
I have a jar right here. This is the current drinking water in Morgan County, Georgia. Right after a data center was constructed, the metadata center was constructed, the only difference between the clean water and this was that data center. I have another one as well. So this wasn't just one well. These wasn't just one family's situation. This is what the drinking water now looks like next to that data center.
Right. So this is really, really crazy. This is alarming. I'm from Colorado, Cripple Creek. We got some dirty water, but that water is downright criminal to have in, to be actually expecting people to be able to bathe in that, to be able to drink that water, to be able to use that in their sewage. That is just completely criminal, right? So if we're looking at the impact of these data centers and all this AI, it is extremely important that we start looking at its effects on the environment, right? And I'm not talking about being an environmentalist. I'm talking about going green. If we're talking about the effects that this is really going to have on the environment, what's going to happen? Like in 5 years, where do y'all see AI if this is what we're seeing right now? Right? That's the big question. I did this to talk about the future, right? That's why we're talking about data centers, because if this is where we're going to start, it's only going to get worse, right? So I wanted to talk about how we as entrepreneurs, how we as business owners, how we as, citizens can start, putting some pressure, keeping our foot on the government's neck, on these big companies, Facebook, Meta AI, Trump saying that, this is inevitable. We just, you're seeing certain companies saying that this is something that's just going to happen, period. Right. So this is huge, right? This is huge. And as entrepreneurs, we got to look at this, right? So I'm going to show you guys this map. So let me show y'all this map real quick, right? When we see this map, this is extremely important. So if you look at the green, it's for operational data centers. So those are data centers that are already out. So you see a couple of green dots. If you see the blue, they're under construction. So these blue dots means that they're coming, right? These purple dots means that they're proposed. So they got something in the works. They're negotiating, right? So you see these purple dots. Now look at the red, community reported data centers, or communities reporting, negative effects of AI. Look at all these red dots. This is extremely, extremely, extremely alarming, right? If we look at this and we start saying, okay, these data centers are being put, we're not putting them on where the water is, right? We're putting them in the middle of these states, right? In small communities, right? This is extremely important, right? So if we look at this map and we start, really studying where they're really putting these data centers, what their real end goal is, it's not looking good for us, right? It's not looking good for us. So how can we really start putting some pressure on these folks, right? So the first thing is we have to have rules and regulations. If we don't have rules and regulations to how these data centers can operate, what they can do, how they need to, the safety precautions that they have to have, how this is going to affect the environment, and if that's the goal, if the goal is to make sure that we can still use AI and still protect the environment and still protect people in communities, right? Low income communities, people who might not be able to afford, water filters, that type of thing, people who are still out in the country who are using wells, farmers, right? When we look at, if the goal is to still protect them and use AI, we have to have, some type of regulations. We have to have less data centers. If we go back to that map and you see all those data centers, why do we need that many, right? We don't need that many, right? So that's the big thing when it comes to, rules and regulations. Do we have any environmentalists on this? Health and wellness professionals or practitioners who really know what the effects of AI could be on the environment, right? So if we don't have that, we're not going to be able to actually know where this is going to go, and how we as entrepreneurs, how we as business owners, how we as just regular people, some of y'all be talking to y'all chats like that's your homie. So I understand that. But the big thing is, can we use AI and still be green, right? And I'm about to give you five of the best green AIs that you can use that are going to really help you actually, be able to use AI and still be green, right? A lot of us think that AI is going to just, hurt the economy. It's, dehumanizing people. A lot of us think that is going to be the next big thing, that it is the future, right? But if you're in the middle like me and you still want to be able to use AI, but you still want to do, things healthy, or you still want to do things green, right? You want to go green, this video is for you, right? So let's talk about the top 5 AIs that you can use that will help you not only still use AI, you still can use it like it's Claude, you still can use it like it's ChatGPT, but it's also going to help the environment, right? All right, so the first green AI that we can use is Ecosha AI. So Ecosha is a nonprofit AI, and what they do is they not only use AI to replant trees, but it also lowers emissions, so they don't use as much energy. That's what they practice, right? They practice climate control, plants trees. Look at how many trees they have planted, over 200 million. So you can use this as a, just a regular, knowledge base chatbot, right? You can use this to ask it regular questions, do your research, secure and private AI that answers to the planet, not to any big companies, and is beyond neutral. So it says right here, we produce more clean energy than it takes to power all searches and AI queries on Ecosha, leading to a more renewable energy on the grid. So that's extremely important. 100% of the profits for the planet. So they're a nonprofit and they use their profits to replant trees, right? Which helps emissions. So the next one is going to be Green PT. So you can use Green PT, for a lot of things, right? And I like Green PT because it's good for business owners. They have solutions for businesses for sustainability. They do have pricing, but you can use this, to replace Claude. You can use this if you want to go green. You have a free 14-day trial. You tell AI things you wouldn't tell anyone else. Where does it go? Who reads it? And what does it cost the planet? That's big, right? So and this is great. Like I said, it's great for business owners. You can build this into your APIs, right? Speech to text. So you can use AI without hurting the environment. You can still use it. And these companies are not, they're either nonprofit or they use it to, reinvest back into the economy, right? So you can still code, you can still do these things that you would use your regular AIs for, but you can do it using green, right? Going green. So the next one is going to be Viro AI. I like Viro AI again. It's used to fund clean energy because they believe AI should not destroy the environment. So I really like Viro AI. I use this for a lot of my research, and all of their profits go to fund wind, solar, projects, right? Wind and solar and AI projects. So this is huge, right? AI queries require 14 times more energy than Google searches. So, if you look at the size of, Claude, and you look at the size of ChatGPT, and you see how many queries they're using every single day, you see how much it is really affecting the air supply, the air quality, the air and the water quality. So it's huge, right? So clean energy impact. Together we're replacing fossil fuels with renewable power, one AI chat at a time. So, this is big, right? You look at all these projects that they're supporting, ocean cleanup, right? So every time you invest with them, this is what they're working on, trying to really help, build a renewable energy system to where we can use AI and not harm the environment, right? So Viro AI is really nice. So this next one is going to be EcoGPT. So this one is going to be basically a replacement for Grok, right? So you see it, you look at ChatGPT and you look at EcoGPT, it's kind of the same thing, right? Again, this is really just another energy efficient ChatGPT that you can use, right? Right, and we can test this too. Like, let's just ask it a random question. Let's just do, give me a marketing strategy for a pet grooming mobile service, right? Let's just say something different, right? See, it's moving pretty fast, right? You see this? So it's moving fast, right? You see ChatGPT, it takes a little bit longer. They're using less energy, right? So energy efficient AI is the move, y'all. So the last one that we're going to talk about, and arguably my favorite green AI, is going to be ChatGPT. So every time you get into a chat with AI, they partner with, I believe it's called Veritree, and they plant trees. So every time you have a chat with AI, they are planting trees. So I love ChatGPT. They're really the world's first eco-friendly AI chatbot. right? So this is great. You can use this for a lot of stuff, right? I use this for my content. I use this for, just regular stuff, trying to do things faster when I'm doing research. So ChatGPT is going to be a great alternative, right? So planting one tree a month offsets AI carbon emissions. Huge, 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 right? So this is big when it comes to what are you really trying to do with yourself, right? Are you really trying to are you really trying to, um, use AI in your business and still, help the environment, right? So that's why I gave you guys those top five. Those were my top five. Those are things that I use on a everyday basis, right? Things that I'm, transitioning from instead of using Claude every single day, instead of using ChatGPT, instead of using Grok, all that type of stuff. I have been using green AIs and they work the same way, y'all. I've used, if you can go side by side and see, sometimes I've even seen, like, for example, ChatGPT or EcoGPT, they really work faster than Claude in AI, right? And or ChatGPT, right? So my personal experience, I've been able to live with the fact that I'm using AI, right? So you're looking at these data centers, you're looking at all this stuff, and you're like, what is really going on? What is really, happening in these data centers? How are we going to, as business owners and entrepreneurs, really take a stance in this and say, okay, this needs to have rules and regulations, it needs to have systems, and we want to be able to use AI without hurting the environment, right? So I wanted to break that down for y'all real quick. We're coming back next week, we're going to be talking about marketing and how collaborations are key. I'm gonna bring more with Mary back on that one. So we're gonna be dropping that on Wednesday. Please stay tuned for that one. But today I wanted to talk about AI data centers, especially for my Coloradoans who have really been, impacted by these new data centers that they're trying to bring to the Springs. So I wanted to, just really come on here and talk about that and how that really transitions into wealth. If we want to use AI, we're gonna have to, fall in line with these agendas, right? But we have to be a part of those agendas. So if these big companies, Facebook, Meta AI, we're seeing them trying to take charge and trying to really just see who can get the biggest AI data center first, so that they can like I said, replace the workforce and kind of take all that money versus which is I believe they said it's like a $30 trillion industry. So if one of these companies can come in and swoop in and take all that workforce, you're really seeing, a power move, right? This is a power move. So AI data centers are not for the economy. They're not for anybody but these big companies, right? So we got to start saying, man, how are we going to change this, right? How are we going to get in these rooms? Are we going to vote? What is your thoughts on this? Like, how are you, impacted by this, right? If you're not in Colorado, and you're in, I've seen some in Illinois, right? The first video that we talked about, that was in Georgia, right? So you see these data centers being put in these water restricted areas. You see them being put in these they're taking farmers off their land, specifically Black farmers. You see them putting them in these rural communities, right? So it's really important that we start taking a stance, whether that's in your city, because your city may be next, right? So start looking at these things, start doing your research. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode. Like, comment, and subscribe as usual, because this really helps us push forward. And really, I've been doing a lot of research on this, so it really helps us talk about this a little bit more and for more people to really see this stuff, right? So again, like, comment, and subscribe. We're coming back next week with Wednesday. We're about to get it going again, get some more people on the podcast. We also got, the Community Blueprint podcast coming up. We're going to be talking about, these NBA trades. We're going to be talking about a little bit about the Black farmers getting their funding back. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. We're going to be following up with the Nolan Wells case, the Carmelo Anthony case, et cetera, et cetera. And we got a few cases that we're going to, be covering soon as well. So please, tell me what you're feeling, right? We're bringing all this information because I want my viewers to, understand that we are out here on the front line and we're trying to, make a change. So, I want everybody to, just tell me what you've been thinking about this. How has this impacted you? And yeah, we're going to be coming back next week. I'm dropping 2 episodes today. I'm actually dropping 3 episodes today. We got 2 Saturday check-ins, and we got this episode about data centers dropping. So y'all stay tuned. I'm about to go crazy. But yeah, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, my name is KDK Capri, the host, the mentor, and the mentee of the Wealthy and Healthy podcast. And I'm going to be back with another one. I'm going to see y'all soon.